Welcome back to Jeeping for Beginners, folks. Once again, my name is Josh, and today we are going to discuss diagnostics. Now, this could easily be a discussion that could get extremely complicated extremely fast, so I'm going to try to keep it as simple as possible. When that little check engine light pops on your vehicle, regardless of which vehicle you're driving, it's usually an indication that something needs attention. Now, in most shops, if you take your vehicle in for a diagnostic, they're going to charge you $100 to $200 to tell you what's wrong. And they have every right to. Most of that diagnostic equipment that they're using, some of those computers are upwards of $10,000 or more just to purchase. Believe me, I run a shop. I know how expensive that stuff is. But it gets down to the root of the problem. However, not all of us are in a position to just go spend $200 and find out what's wrong with our car. So today, I'm going to show you not only how to do it yourself, but how to do it with your cell phone. So stick around. I think you're going to enjoy this. So welcome back to Jeeping for Beginners, folks. Like I said, today we are going to be talking about diagnostics. Now, depending upon the year of your Dodge, Chrysler, or Jeep branded product, the number of computers that are in it could range anywhere from 7 to 80 computers. No joke. 80 computers in some of the new models, which, in my opinion, is a little excessive and a little ridiculous. But when there is a problem with something electrically, in the technology, or even mechanically that affects the vehicle's performance or affects its emission system, that little light on your dash is going to pop on and tell you there's a problem. Now, here's something that a lot of people don't realize about the onboard computer. It's like a 2-year-old, okay? The onboard computer is relatively stupid for the technology that surrounds us every day. It's not actually going to tell you what's wrong. It just tells you that there is a problem. Like a 2-year-old pointing and screaming when it sees something it doesn't like, your onboard computer does the same thing. Hey, check it out. There is something that I don't like. So before we get into actually scanning the car and figuring out what's wrong, I just want to cover a couple of details on why knowing how to repair that check engine light is important. Every vehicle is equipped with an emission system. The emission system that is in it starts with the ignition all the way through combustion, out through the exhaust, and exits the vehicle. The onboard computer system primarily, although it does monitor everything, primarily is looking for faults that is causing your vehicle to fail emissions, meaning that you're either polluting more than the vehicle is designed to pollute, or that something is affecting its ability to meet that range. Now, that's why most common when you see a check engine light, it's usually something to do with ignition, combustion, or emissions. But does that mean that there aren't other codes that could be in there? Well, if the vehicle finds a fault with, let's say, the headlight bulb going out, or it finds a fault with the horn no longer working, or your tire pressure is too low, it's still going to record that code. But it's not going to set the check engine light. Why? Because any of those minor issues does not actually affect the performance of the vehicle. This is why it starts getting a little intense when it comes to diagnostics or bringing your vehicle to a shop. Now, that's secret number one. Let me share something else with you that a lot of people don't know, and we're going to call it secret number 2. Now, when the light pops on your dash, that means that the onboard computer system in your car is trying to talk to you. It's simply pointing out, like I mentioned earlier, a 2-year-old's way of saying, hey, there's a problem. But it's not going to tell you what the problem is or how to fix it. Now, here's what I mean, okay? Let's look at something really simple, your ignition system, all right? In my Jeep, for example, I've got a V6, which means that I've got 6 cylinders that each one of them needs air, fuel, and spark in order to run properly. Now, your onboard computer system is monitoring your ignition system to make sure that it's working properly. When it sees, let's say, a misfire, it will monitor it and make sure it doesn't happen again. If it sees it a second time, then it triggers the light. But the code that you're going to see is either a PO300, which is a random misfire, computer saying, hey, I don't like what it's doing, or it'll point specifically at a cylinder and say, hey, cylinder 4 is misfiring. But that's it. That's all it's going to tell you. Now, like I said, you need air, fuel, and spark in order for that cylinder to run properly. So which one failed? The air, the fuel, or the spark? Well, we don't really know. That's where diagnostics come in. And like I said, the computer told you where to look. Now we got to figure out why. So let's say the computer said cylinder 1 is misfiring. Well, when you look at it yourself, now you know cylinder 1 is misfiring. But if you're not a mechanic or you're not handy, you're not going to be able to tell why. Now, at this point, we're going to recommend taking it to a shop so they can determine. They're going to check the spark plug, the ignition coil, the wiring, the valves, the intake, the fuel delivery, fuel injectors, and so on and so forth, plus other sensors that could affect it. Did you know that a misfire isn't necessarily pointing at that cylinder has a problem? You could have a bad mass airflow sensor, a bad O2 sensor, or so on and so forth. Like I said, this could get complicated really, really quick. But by knowing what it is that you're looking at, kind of gives you an idea of what it's going to take in order to fix it. Now, like I mentioned, you could easily spend $10,000+ on a scanner that will get into your computer, will help narrow things down, tell you what the codes are, tell you what they mean, and tell you where to look. Or we can do it directly from our smartphone. Now, I'm going to show you how to do that, but I'm going to preface this by saying that your phone or any onboard diagnostic equipment is not necessarily going to tell you how to fix the vehicle. It's simply going to tell you where to look. In order to scan the computer in the vehicle, you need a device that will plug into the computer and translate the information that is stored in there into something that you and I can understand. I am going to show you this product. For a shockingly little fee, you can pick up this little OBD2 scanner, which is just this little device, which will plug into your vehicle, communicate directly to your cell phone, and tell you what you have going on. Wouldn't it be nice before you take the vehicle in for repairs that you're already armed with the information to know exactly where they need to look for the problem? Here, let me show you how this works. On every Jeep product, regardless of which make you have, the OBD2 port or the tool we need to plug into in order to scan the computer is always located to the left of the driver's side steering wheel and up underneath. So I don't know if you can see it from there, but this little guy right here is what we need to access. This is in the same shape with the same number of pins, and all we're going to do is just plug it right in. Now, once you have it plugged in, you need to send power to it. Initially, this thing doesn't have any power unless the vehicle is on. So, do not start the Jeep. All you need to do is simply turn the key to the on position so we can get power to read the computer. Now, once we have power to read the computer, on your smartphone, which this is working via Bluetooth, all you do is pull up the app associated with it, which, regardless of which one you get, tells you which one to download, so don't panic about that. Pull it up, and you notice you've got some diagnostic tools. So what you want to do to start with is hit OBD Diagnostics. There are some other features in here which are really fun to play with, but this is what we're talking about today. So you hit OBD Diagnostics, and it'll say Connect. So now it's going to find the device that we just put into the computer. Now, we have a Chrysler product. Remember, Jeep is part of the Chrysler line. So you scroll down, you may not necessarily see Jeep itself, but if you type on Chrysler, then it knows that it's looking at a Chrysler product. Here, you can read the codes, you can erase the codes, you can check data stream, freeze frame information. Now here's the secret. When most service technicians are scanning your vehicle in order to figure out what happened to trigger that light, your freeze frame data is the best information. Why? Because your computer takes a snapshot of every single reading in the car of every sensor every time it triggers the light. So this way you can see exactly what conditions set it. In our case, let's start at the very top. We're going to read the codes. Current, pending, or permanent. Now, a lot of people get confused about this as well. Current codes mean what's active right now. Pending codes means it sees a problem, it's not happy with it, but it hasn't been enough to trigger the light just yet, so it might be coming, and it's always worth looking at. Permanent codes means that no matter what, that code is always there. In my case, being that I have accessories and modifications, I'm sure there's several permanent codes on this thing. But let's start with current DTCs. It'll say processing. Now in my case, I have no vehicle fault codes. Well, my check engine light wasn't on, so that's great news. Permanent codes. Shockingly enough, I don't have any of those either. Honestly, I really thought I was going to have some. So, once you figure out what the code is, let's say it's an evaporative emissions code because you left your gas cap off. You can erase it, shut it off. If it comes back on, you might have a problem. But another feature I want to show is IM readiness. Now, for those of us that live in an area that require emissions testing, or otherwise known as smog testing for their vehicles, you need to make sure that the monitors in the vehicle are set and ready to be tested for that test. So, since DTCs were cleared is always the best way to look. So if we look at that, it's going to communicate, and it tells me that my misfire, my fuel, my communication, my catalytic converter, my evap system, my O2 systems, and my heater controls and my EGR all have green check marks. So this tells me this thing is ready to pass smog. I have no DTCs, which stands for Diagnostic Trouble Code, or what triggers the check engine light. I have no pending DTCs, meaning the vehicle is extremely satisfied with the way that it's running. I've got nothing to worry about. That's awesome news. Now, let's say in your case that you had a Diagnostic Trouble Code. We'll call it P0300. Probably one of the more common ones that we see when it comes to Jeep motors. You scroll down, you could do DTC lookup, okay? In this particular case, it asks you to input what the code is. So, we're going to change this to P0300. And again, I don't know if you can see that, but it's nice and simple. Then hit OK. What this does is this tells you what that code means. This is a random or multiple cylinder misfire detected. So now you're armed with not only what the code is, but what the code means. So if you do bring it to a shop to get it repaired and they come out and say, hey, we found that you have a fuel pump circuit code, you'd be like, no, according to my diagnostic tool, it was a P0300, which is random cylinder misfire. So, again, not necessarily a perfect match to fix a vehicle, but now you're armed with the information that you need. Alright guys, now like I said, when it comes to onboard diagnostics, this subject can get really complicated really fast, especially depending upon how many computers are in the car, how much technology is in your vehicle, or how it's been treated, how many miles, so on and so forth. A good rule of thumb that I want everybody to take away from this is, if the light's on, doesn't necessarily mean that it's something major. It could be the gas cap's loose. It could be a sensor has failed. It's not going to stop you from driving it. However, I do need to point out, when the check engine light comes on, if it starts flashing at you, then that is an immediate cause to stop the vehicle, no longer operate it, and get it repaired. The flashing check engine light means imminent engine failure every time. And I don't care what brand you're driving, from BMW all the way down to Kia, flashing check engine light is no good. But if you're out on the trail, something doesn't feel right, and the check engine light pops on, guess what? You have your cell phone on you and your little device. You can figure out if it's something major or something minor, which I think would save a ton of time, a ton of aggravation, and a ton of money in the future. All right, guys, listen, for well more than 24 years, I have been in the automotive industry, either with the dealership side of it or the aftermarket side of it. And I can tell you that there is a lot that you can answer on your own and take care of on your own. But when it comes to deep vehicle diagnostics, I'm always going to recommend seeking professional help. This tool is not designed to replace your mechanic. This tool is designed to arm you and educate you so that you do not get taken advantage of by your mechanic. I hope that makes sense. The long and short of what I'm trying to say is a little $50 device like this could save you a bunch of time, aggravation, and money in the future. Once again, my name is Josh. This is Jeeping for Beginners. I am going to put a link for this device. I actually think of all the ones I've used, this is the easiest product to use when it comes to scanning your computer. So take a look at it. Click on the link and tell me what you think. In the meantime, happy Jeeping, stay safe, and we will see you next time.